On the eve of the wedding, I walked into the kitchen and heard the bride say to her sister, "After the honeymoon, I'll squeeze everything out of him, money, intelligence, every last drop. He's so in love he won't suspect a thing." The sister grinned, "Don't forget to take the house away. Let him watch you start a new life in it." I just smiled and silently went back upstairs. I didn't stop her. Let her think she'd won. For 2 months I silently prepared a response, gathering evidence, protecting assets, building a trap. And in court, her world came crashing down. All right, no idea where to even start with this because it still feels like it happened to someone else. But here I am, typing this out like it's some kind of therapy session for strangers on the internet. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the only way to stop feeling like I've completely lost my grip on what's real. I swear, sometimes it feels like I'm stuck in a twisted simulation and everyone else is just playing their part. Anyway, my name's Daniel. I'm 29. Up until 2 months ago, I honestly thought I was about to marry the woman I'd spend the rest of my life with. Not just love, I'm talking about that comfortable, laugh at dumb memes, fall asleep on the couch kind of partnership. Her name is Leah. She's 28. At least, she was my fiancée. We met almost 3 years ago at a paint and sip event, yeah, one of those wine plus watercolor things. My mom had an extra ticket because my dad bailed last minute and she basically guilt-tripped me into coming. I figured, what the hell? I like wine. I showed up thinking I'd be one of a handful of awkward adults drinking cheap Merlot while pretending to care about sunflowers on a canvas. Instead, I walked into a room of 15 women and 0 other guys. Total fish out of water moment. Leah was part of a group of women who, from the second I picked up a brush, decided I was their personal entertainment for the evening. And not in a flirty way, more like I was the class clown. Leah was the loudest of them. She roasted my painting so hard I thought she was being mean for fun. I mean, she called my tree a celery stick with trust issues. But somehow I liked her. She wasn't fake. She didn't try to baby me through it or flirt awkwardly. She just was herself. Sharp, dry sense of humor. Confident. When the night was wrapping up, she asked me if I wanted to grab a drink sometime. That threw me off and I respected it. Fast forward 2.5 years, we were living together in a nice little 2-bedroom place just outside the city. We got engaged last fall, simple proposal at home, nothing fancy. She cried, said yes, and posted it before I could even process what was happening. At first, it was bliss. We binged the same trashy crime shows, made each other laugh, fought over Chinese takeout made up. She was organized to a fault, always had a plan, a budget, a spreadsheet for something. But I chalked that up to being anxious. Her family was kind of intense, especially her sister, Nicole. Think classic, louder than necessary personality with a constant need to be right. Nicole always had something to say about our relationship. Why haven't you merged your finances yet? Who's paying for what? What about insurance? Are you two making smart decisions? I figured she was just overprotective. Annoying but harmless. Then came the month before the wedding. That's when little cracks started showing. Leah would get irritated if I pushed off conversations about combining accounts. She'd make these passive-aggressive jokes like, well, one of us has to be responsible with money. I noticed she started hovering over my shoulder when I was paying bills on my phone, pretending like she was looking at something else. If I pulled up my banking app to send rent, suddenly she'd be asking random questions or glancing at my screen a little too long. I asked her about it once, jokingly, and she brushed it off like I was being dramatic. "It's not a secret," she said. "I just like to know what's going on." That didn't feel great. But we were planning a wedding and stress does weird things to people, right? Her family, for what it's worth, had this bizarre obsession with money but never in a direct way. They treated financial talk like a dirty little secret, taboo to discuss, but somehow always the unspoken center of every conversation. Now here's where the story really turns. The night before the wedding, we were all staying at my parents' house. They lived closer to the venue and had enough space for everyone. It was chaos, caterers in and out, family arguing over the playlist, my dad trying to fix the outdoor lights that didn't need fixing. Leah was there, bouncing between calls and curling irons. Nicole was glued to her side, being her usual overbearing self. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I went downstairs to grab a glass of water just to escape the noise in my head. As I'm walking toward the kitchen, I hear Leah's laugh. Nicole's voice too. I'm about to turn the corner when I hear my name. That's the kind of thing that makes you stop, right? It's not even eavesdropping at that point, it's human reflex. I paused, just out of sight, heart already pounding a little harder than I'd like to admit. And then I heard Leah say, plain as day. "After the honeymoon, I'm draining him dry. His money, his mind, everything. He's so in love he won't see it coming." Nicole laughed. Not a haha, you're wild kind of laugh, more like the kind you let out when you're both in on something cruel. Don't forget the house, Nicole added. Make him watch you move on in it. They both laughed again. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. It felt like someone hit pause on the world and I was the only one who noticed. They kept talking about some mutual friend who pulled the same thing on her fiancé, about how men are easy if you just fake listening. It was like I'd stumbled into the villain monologue part of the movie, except the villains were my soon-to-be wife and her sister. I didn't go in. I didn't confront them. I just turned around and went back upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone for what felt like hours. I couldn't even cry. I felt stupid. Violated. Furious. But more than anything, I felt quiet. Like a switch flipped in me. And I thought, you're not getting off that easy. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every second of that conversation, every red flag I brushed off for the past year. Why didn't I just cancel the wedding right then? Honestly, I don't have a good answer. Some people will say I was weak, that I should have called it off and exposed her. But I didn't want to give her that win, the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. So I played along. Next morning, she's snapping at everyone like some low-budget diva. She yells at my mom about flowers, scolds Nicole about her hair, and rolls her eyes at me when I make a joke about the sunny weather. I nod. I smile. I play my role. My dad pulls me aside and says, "You sure about this?" I just say I'm tired. He looks at me like he knows something's wrong but doesn't press. What could I say? Hey Dad, I overheard my fiancée and her sister plotting to ruin me, but let's get this show on the road. She was too good at acting. The moment other people were around, she turned sweet. Affectionate. The girl everyone thought I was lucky to have. And maybe I was lucky. Just not in the way they meant. Because I saw the truth before it was too late. And I was about to let her think she won. The morning of the wedding felt like I was watching someone else live my life. Everything was moving in fast forward, makeup artists brushing powder onto already perfect skin, my dad in the kitchen messing with the coffee machine, people barking instructions about boutonnieres and timelines like any of it actually mattered. I just stood there, smiling when expected, nodding like a puppet. Leah was everywhere and nowhere. Snapping at people 1 second, hugging them the next. She played the bride role so well it was almost impressive. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed it myself. I kept looking for some sign. Some flicker in her face that said, "I don't mean this. I'm sorry. I'm scared." Anything that would suggest this wasn't a total act. But nothing came. She was focused on aesthetics, the playlist, the photos, making sure her lipstick was the exact shade she'd picked 3 months ago. Nicole was never far behind her. At one point, I caught them whispering behind a door. I only caught part of it, but Nicole said something like, "Just keep your head straight. Stick to the plan." That word, plan, made my stomach flip. I was tying my tie in the mirror when I seriously considered walking. Not storming out dramatically, just vanishing. Leaving a note. Something like, "I know. Good luck bleeding a ghost dry." But I didn't. Why? Because part of me needed to see how far she'd go if she thought I was really hers. If she believed she had me locked down, how would she behave? Would she drop the mask completely? Would she push further? I wasn't staying because I loved her. Not anymore. I stayed because I needed to see the full blueprint. The whole playbook. I wasn't going to be another guy who said I had no idea. No, I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. The ceremony was fine. Bland. A blur. People cried. We kissed. Cameras clicked. Leah smiled like she'd won a prize. Nicole smirked like she'd helped pull off a heist. And I stood there in the middle of it feeling like a fraud in my own suit. At the reception, everything was picture perfect. Leah was glued to my side, clinging, really? Laughing a little too loud at my stories, holding my hand like it was a performance. And maybe it was. Maybe she thought I was still under her spell. But behind the smiles, I was cataloging everything. Every glance between her and Nicole. Every moment her phone buzzed and she tilted it away from me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I just watched. That night in the hotel room was the first time I saw it fully, the switch. When we were finally alone, she didn't cuddle, didn't laugh, didn't even say much. She changed into sweatpants, sat on the edge of the bed, and scrolled through her phone like I wasn't even there. I asked her if everything was okay. She said she was just tired. Then she turned over and went to sleep. Not exactly the wedding night you picture when you're a kid. But by then, I already knew the fairy tale was a setup. This was the beginning of a slow bleed. The week after the wedding, things started shifting. Fast. Leah suddenly had an intense interest in logistics. She brought up merging bank accounts again, more often now. Every other day she was asking if I'd looked into consolidating things or setting up joint credit cards like normal couples do. I played dumb. Said I'd been busy. She got snippy. One night she tossed a stack of bills at me and said I was stalling on purpose. Meanwhile, Nicole practically moved in. She was at our apartment nearly every evening, dropping by just to check on us, but always managing to find a way to steer conversations toward money. You guys have to protect each other, she'd say, looking right at me. You don't want surprises later. Sometimes she'd hint that Leah was so anxious about not being on the title to the house. Once, when I said we'd figure it out, she actually rolled her eyes and muttered, "Hope you're not dragging your feet." That one stuck with me. I didn't argue. I just nodded, smiled, and took mental notes. I started changing my passwords. Logged out of everything after using it. I stopped leaving my phone unattended. That's when I noticed Leah starting to snoop more. I'd walk into the room and she'd pretend to be looking for her charger, near my laptop, near my wallet, wherever I'd left something important. She'd pick up my phone casually when I left it charging. When I asked what she was doing, she'd say, "I thought it was mine," or "just checking the time." I didn't confront her. I just started making a log. Notes on my phone, voice memos when I was alone. Dates, times, what she said. I took screenshots of texts, receipts, even random things she left out that felt off. At first, I felt crazy doing it. Like maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew I wasn't paranoid, I was just finally seeing clearly. And the clearer it got, the darker the picture became. By the third week of marriage, I had no illusions left. Whatever honeymoon phase people talk about didn't exist for us. Leah had shifted into something else entirely. And honestly, I don't think it was a sudden change. I think I just finally stopped making excuses for things that had been there all along. She'd wake up earlier than me now, which was new. She was never a morning person when we were dating. Suddenly she'd be dressed, hair done, out the door by 7 a.m. Sometimes she said she was going for a walk. Sometimes she didn't say anything at all. Other times Nicole would be waiting outside in her car. They wouldn't even try to hide it. They'd sit in the car talking, windows up, pretending I didn't exist. I didn't care. Let them talk. I had my own plans. One afternoon I came home early and found my laptop open on the kitchen table. I never leave it out. When I asked her about it, Leah said she needed to check an email because hers wasn't working. I just nodded, but that night I bought a lockbox and started keeping all my electronics and documents inside it. She noticed. The next morning she made a snide comment over breakfast. "If you have nothing to hide, why are you suddenly acting like a spy?" I just smiled and said, "Guess I finally care about privacy." That was the first time she didn't have a comeback. I started moving money into a separate bank account. Little by little. Not enough to raise eyebrows, just enough to protect myself. I made a new email address. Changed my passwords. Set up 2FA. I even opened a safety deposit box and stored a USB drive there with copies of everything: texts, audio recordings, scans of important papers, and a log I was keeping every single day. It wasn't just paranoia. It was insurance. Because Leah was escalating. She started leaving paperwork out in the open like bait. Documents I never asked for, house title transfers, joint account applications, a folder labeled financial planning. She highlighted fields she wanted me to sign and stuck post-it notes on top: "Let's just get this over with, and normal couples do this." I ignored it. That drove her nuts. She accused me of being cold. Of not loving her. Of changing after the wedding. I just kept playing dumb. Said I was busy, distracted, tired. I let her rage and sulk and storm around the apartment like a ghost. I let her dig her own hole. Nicole wasn't much better. She started texting me directly, asking weirdly personal questions about our money. One time she sent me a 3-paragraph message about the importance of feeling secure in a modern marriage, followed by, "It's not just about trust, it's about legal safety for both parties." I didn't answer. So she showed up at our apartment. I was home alone. She just walked in like she owned the place and backed me into the kitchen. "You're hurting Leah," she said. "She's scared. She doesn't know why you're being like this." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "She's not scared. She's losing control." That's not the same thing. She didn't like that. She slapped the countertop and stormed out. Leah doubled down that night. She cried. Said she felt like I didn't trust her. Said I was making her feel like a stranger in her own marriage. I asked her what exactly she wanted from me. She said, "Your trust. Your commitment. And your signature." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "You have my commitment. I married you, didn't I?" She threw a pillow at me and called me an asshole. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. At this point, my parents started noticing something was off. My mom would text me every day asking if I was okay. My dad, not one for drama, called and just said, "Don't let anyone force your hand, son. You worked hard for what you have. Protect it." I didn't tell them everything. Not yet. But I started visiting more often. Spent long weekends at their house. I'd leave my phone in the kitchen and just sit outside with my dad in silence. It was the only place I felt like myself. Then came the letter. A formal document from a law office addressed to me. Leah had retained a lawyer. The letter stated that unless I voluntarily added her to the deed of our house, she would pursue legal action on the grounds of emotional distress and marital betrayal. I read it twice. Then I laughed. I showed it to my dad. He didn't even look surprised. Just shook his head and said, "Some people have no shame." When I brought it up to Leah, she didn't even try to deny it. She said, "I just wanted to be taken seriously. You weren't listening." I said, "I'm listening now. And you're done." She tried the tears again. Tried to hug me. I stepped back. That night, I moved the rest of my documents to my parents' house. And the next morning, I called a lawyer of my own. Not a friend of a friend. Not someone flashy. Just a quiet, experienced attorney who listened more than he talked. I showed him everything. The texts. The audio. The screenshots. The timeline. He looked over it all and said, "This is solid. You're protected." That was the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe. Leah kept pushing in the days after. More paperwork. More accusations. She started telling mutual friends that I was shutting her out, that I was emotionally abusive, that she didn't feel safe. I didn't fight back. I didn't make a scene. I just kept gathering proof. Kept recording. Then I filed. And we served her the divorce papers the following Tuesday. She tried to slam the door in the process server's face. It didn't work. Nicole was there too, screaming at me from the hallway, calling me a coward. I didn't answer. I just grabbed my keys and left for my parents' place. That was the day I stopped pretending. I wasn't the naive guy she thought I was. I wasn't going to be her silent ATM. And I wasn't scared anymore. The silence I gave her? That was the real power. And she had no idea what was coming next. After she got served the divorce papers, the energy in our apartment shifted completely. Not just tension, it was like the air itself went stale. Leah barely spoke. She still slammed cabinet doors like punctuation marks, and Nicole still acted like she lived there, but the fake smiles? Gone. Leah tried one more emotional ambush the day after. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands folded, doing her best sad but strong performance. Said she just wanted to talk, no lawyers, no fighting. Just closure. I let her speak. She rambled about how we could still fix things, how she made mistakes, how Nicole pressured her. Then she said it, "I only pushed for the house because I was scared you'd leave me with nothing." I just stared at her. "You tried to take everything." I was never the one threatening to walk away. She flinched at that. Tried to reach for my hand and I pulled away. The next week was quiet. Too quiet. Leah would come and go without saying a word. Nicole stopped showing up. I assumed someone had told her she was only making things worse. Or maybe Leah finally realized she was a liability. Either way, I didn't care. My lawyer handled most of it from then on. There were emails from her side trying to renegotiate. Claims of emotional hardship, requests for mediation. My lawyer kept replying the same way, "Here is the evidence. Here are the documents." I kept my head down. Focused on work. Spent more time with my parents. My mom would make too much food on purpose, and my dad barely let me pour my own coffee when I visited. I didn't talk much and they didn't press. It was exactly what I needed. Then came the court date. Leah walked in like she was auditioning for a movie. Perfect makeup, subtle tears, shaking hands. Her lawyer tried to paint me as distant, cold, controlling. But when my lawyer laid out the timeline, the audio files, the screenshots, it was like watching the color drain from their faces in real time. Texts from Leah to Nicole, "He's so in love, he won't see it coming." "Nicole, make sure you get the house. He'll cave if you cry." The judge read some of it aloud. Leah looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Nicole tried to chime in at one point, but the judge shut her down fast. "You're not a party to this case," he said, with that flat tone judges use when they're this close to holding someone in contempt. Leah's lawyer tried to pivot, say it was all taken out of context, that Leah had been under stress. The judge wasn't having it. He said the intent was clear. That the attempted manipulation of marital law for financial gain was deeply concerning. He ruled in my favor. No joint ownership of the house. No claim to my savings. No spousal support. Just a clean break. She walked away with exactly what she came in with, nothing more. When we left the courtroom, she tried to talk to me again. Said she was sorry that it had all gotten out of hand. That she never wanted to hurt me. I didn't say a word. Just walked right past her. She moved out the following Saturday. Nicole came to help. They packed in silence. I didn't lift a finger. My dad stood in the doorway the entire time, arms crossed, just watching. They didn't say goodbye. The next day, I changed the locks. Blocked their numbers. Tossed out the last of Leah's things. My mom came over and helped clean, didn't say much, just worked beside me, humming to herself like it was any other weekend. People ask me sometimes if I feel like I won. I don't. What I feel is relief. Relief that I trusted my gut. That I didn't fold under pressure. That I stayed calm even when it felt like my entire life was being picked apart. I didn't win anything. I just didn't lose what I built. A few mutual friends tried to reach out after the ruling. Most had heard Leah's version before mine. But once I offered to show them the receipts, they either went quiet or admitted they had no idea it was that bad. I wasn't angry at them. I didn't need anyone to pick sides. I just needed distance. So yeah, that's it. No grand lessons here. No poetic ending. Just one very tired man learning the hard way that love without honesty is just a game. And sometimes the best way to win is not to play along. Thanks for listening. If you're going through something even half as toxic, document everything. Say less. And never ever ignore your gut.